House's members of the Homeland Security Committee. And Congressman Jefferson, for his part, continues to maintain he is innocent of all allegations. Andrea Koppel, CNN, Capitol Hill.
And we are joined now by three of the best political analysts in the country. In New York, I'm joined by Democratic strategist Robert Zimmerman and Miguel Perez, nationally syndicated columnist. From Washington, Diana West of the Washington Times, and thank you all for joining us. Okay, so this flap over Jefferson and Pelosi's defense of this, what do you make of it?
I think it's amazing that they're even considering this man for any kind of appointment right now. I think that until he's cleared, they should not be considering him from anything. But the fact that Ms. Pelosi has decided to put this off now, this is the latest thing that we're hearing, that she's putting it off because the Republicans are calling for a roll call on this vote. It's very significant. Who wants to get up and say, I'm for the guy who has the $90,000 in his refrigerator?
Yeah. Well, I think what's really amazing is the fact that his constituents reelected him to the Congress. That's really the travesty. Ultimately, it doesn't take Columbo to figure out this is a guy with a problem. But the bigger problem that's confronting Congress bipartisanly is that what do you do with an individual who is not facing any charges, has not faced any indictments, has been reelected to serve by his constituents, and this is the case affecting Jefferson, plus there are two Republican members of the House under federal investigation serving on the Appropriations Committee, which is in charge of spending money. And yet, you don't hear anything from the Republicans about how to handle that. There has to be a bipartisan solution as to how to address the issue of members of Congress who are under investigation but haven't been charged.
Diana?
Well, yes, sure. I think the way you handle it, though, is you exercise a little caution and keep such members off very sensitive committees or any committees at all. I think it's one thing to give the man a ride home on Air Force One, a little strange, but I can understand the protocol. It's quite another to give him this Homeland Security seat in what's supposed to be the most ethical Congress in history. It just doesn't compute.
Well, there are plenty of people calling him out on it. Let's move on to a couple of other topics because we really could spend some time on this one. It's fascinating. But let's look at the latest poll numbers because that's even more fascinating. And Republicans in Washington, the poll is ABC News poll. And we have the lineup: choice for nominee in 2008, Rudy Giuliani 44%, John McCain 21%, Newt Gingrich 15%, Mitt Romney 4%. What do you make of the numbers, Miguel?
Very interesting, especially the shifting that's going on in all of these races. Giuliani keeps moving up, McCain keeps moving down. Hillary is starting to move down a little bit because Senator Obama has moved up, and very significantly the shift in the African-American vote.
Yeah, let's bring up the Democrats while we're at it. This one we have Hillary Clinton at 36%, Barack Obama 24%, Al Gore 14%, John Edwards at 12%. Miguel, I go back to you because you talked about the very important African-American vote and support for Obama about 2 weeks ago on this broadcast, and I have to say you were right about this.
Well, you know, I was surprised at that time that African-Americans were not coming out just yet for Mr. Obama, but now the shift has been dramatic. I mean, it was December and January, it was 60 to 20 for Hillary, and now all of a sudden Obama leads her 44 to 33% among African Americans. That's a shift and a half.
That's right, Robert.
I think it's important to remember the polls are going to continue to shift dramatically, and that's just the reality of a process this early on. I've argued in the show many times that the concept of a front runner is an obsolete concept in today's political climate. So yes, I think it's very significant that the African-American vote is up for grabs. I think it's great that all the candidates are competing for it, but it's very important to remember that what really counts is not the national polls, but how these candidates will poll in the early caucus and primaries, because that's where the momentum comes to determine the nominee.
And there's plenty of time for slip-ups and mistakes and successes from then. Diana?
Yes, well, I think that the funniest comment on all of this comes from Newt Gingrich, who said about a week ago that we're going to get so bored with these candidates for the next 2 years almost that at a certain point the voters are going to Survivor style vote everybody off the island because this is going to be very familiar territory to us very soon.
All right, well, let's hope not. Our democracy may be at risk at that point. But anyway, let's take a quick break and come back to some other topics in a minute, and we're back with our panel right after this. Stay with us.
Color your hair when you're juggling a million other things? That's why I use L'Oreal's Excellence Cream. Talk about low maintenance. A non-drip excellence formula wraps around stubborn grays with a triple protection system for shiny, brilliant, totally low maintenance color. Excellence Cream by L'Oreal Paris.
At Stanford, we take a different approach to private wealth management. Our globally diversified investment strategy is implemented by some of the best and brightest in the industry. Individuals who are committed to doing the hard work necessary to stay one step ahead of the world's ever-changing investment climate. Our people are what set us apart. Hard work, clear vision, value for the client. Stanford.
Need cash? Borrow up to 125% of your home's value with a fixed-rate Freedom Loan from DTech. With DTech, you can feel confident that you're being taken care of every step of the way. Call DTech now, 1-800-71-FIXED.
What do you know about computers?
My daughter definitely knows how to use a computer better than I do half the time, and she's 3.5.
Hi, I'm John Scherer, CEO and founder of Video Professor. I've been hearing comments like that for over 18 years now. Listen to this.
I did the Excel, and it was a lot of fun. I had a real good time. I learned a lot.
The difference, just 1 hour with one of my CDs, and they're easy to use. The CD plays like a video on your computer screen. Just follow the step-by-step instructions. And if you call right now, I'll send you any lesson of your choice free. The reason I can do this is because I know that once you try my product, you'll come back to us for all your computer learning needs. If you can't learn for any reason, I'll not only refund your shipping and processing, but I'll send you $10. So learn a new skill in less than an hour. Try my product.
I think that's the most fun I've had learning something about the computer.
To get your free computer learning CD, you must call now. Call 1-800-701-3063.
He survived the Zodiac, Monday night at 10. After 30 years of silence, one of the Zodiac Killer's only surviving victims speaks out. A 360 exclusive. Zodiac, Monday night, 10 Eastern.
CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Closed captioning provided by HeadOn. HeadOn applied directly to the forehead.
HeadOn. Apply direct.
HeadOn. Apply directly to your forehead. HeadOn. Apply. HeadOn. I can't stand your commercial, but your product is amazing.
HeadOn is available without a prescription.
Joining me once again, Robert Zimmerman, Miguel Perez, and Diana West. And thanks for staying with us through the commercial. And let's talk about John McCain. A Letterman announce. I think it's got some style, I have to say. But then there was some devil in the details, and his statement was picked to pieces. Let's look at what he said. Americans are very frustrated, and they have every right to be. We wasted, and that was the word that caused the problem, a lot of the our most precious treasure, which is American lives over there, talking about Iraq. Wasted was the sticking point. And then he corrected himself. He said, I should have used the word sacrifice, as I have in the past. No one appreciates and honors more than I do the selfless patriotism of American servicemen and women in Iraq. So there was much made over this. Do you think too much was made over this?
Much to do about nothing. I mean, so he chose, it's semantics. He chose the word wasted instead of sacrifice. Mr. Senator Obama has also used the word wasted, and the Republicans criticized him when he did it. Now the Democrats, I guess, criticizing Mr. McCain. They have to find something better to fight about.
This is the game of gotcha politics that really demeans the entire process.
Absolutely.
Obviously, John McCain is a patriot. He's a decorated hero from Vietnam. And I have every confidence that he respects the sacrifices made by our brave men and women. But there's a much bigger issue here than his choice of words. John McCain, the maverick of 2000, is not going to rekindle that by appearing on David Letterman. He's going to rekindle it by the type of rhetoric and leadership that he showed, which clearly is not happening. For him to talk about the lives being lost and then support the escalation of the war really reflects the fact he's become nothing more than a Bush acolyte on the Iraq war policy and nothing more but an establishment Bush Republican.
All right, let's, Diana, weigh in here on this.
Well, I would only add that presidential candidates, when they become candidates, take on a symbolic role, and that rhetoric using words such as wasted don't go over well, and I wouldn't expect either man or any other candidate to use such language.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Let's turn to, as long as we're on this topic about Iraq, Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice announced this week that Iraq and the United States will sponsor a neighborhood meeting and it will be sort of group discussion with Iran and Syria. How do you assess this? And some charging this is a major flip-flop for the Bush administration.
It is
Miguel?
It is a major flip-flop. They've been saying all along that they would not meet with rogue regimes, the axis of evil, and obviously these two countries are, Syria and Iran, are part of that. So yeah, it is a major shift. I don't know if it's a good idea. I don't know if we should be talking to our enemies.
It's not a good idea.
Okay, Diana, go ahead.
Well, for one thing, when they announce a neighbors meeting, I begin to wonder if Mr. Rogers is going to come back for it. But it's such cloying language. But there's a very important point here in dealing with Iran. It's not only that it's a terrorist state sponsor, there's also the dissimilarity in goals. You have a leader in Iran, when he was mayor of Tehran, one of his pet proposals was to widen the streets of Tehran so that the hidden imam on his return to Earth could tread on broad avenues. You have someone who is focused on the afterlife. When we sit down with world leaders, we are thinking of this world, and there is just no playing field level enough for such a meeting. It's fruitless.
Diana clearly doesn't like this. Go ahead, Robert.
Fortunately, Ronald Reagan didn't have that kind of narrow perspective when he sat down with Miguel Gorbachev.
And
let me finish my point, Diana, if I might.
Of course.
Furthermore, President Kennedy also showed the diplomatic maturity to reach out to negotiate with Russia during the Cuban Missile Crisis. No one is defending the Iran regime and what it represents. But we have now heard from so many different leaders in foreign policy and our military leaders pointing out that now is a critical time to begin a dialogue. Iran is economically dysfunctional. They're now rationing gasoline, and the leadership of Iran is facing severe rebellion in his own ranks.
Well, I'm so glad, but it's different from negotiating with other communist nations, as you mentioned before, because they are motivated by the same kinds of great power problems that any nation shares.
We won't know what they share until we have a dialogue with them, and that's the issue, Diana.
You know, what we'll do is we'll revisit this after the meeting, and we'll continue to debate it. But for now, we're out of time. And thank you very much for being with us today. Robert Zimmerman, Miguel Perez, and Diana West.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Please join us tomorrow. For all of us here, thanks for watching. Enjoy your week.